Welcome to Purpose 360. I'm Carol Cohn.
And I'm Chris Noble.
And we're on a journey to explore the brightest and most innovative minds and initiatives in social purpose.
Today, companies and brands must stand for something meaningful. They have to have a social purpose and bring that purpose forward to their employees, their customers, and their community.
Each episode, we're talking to leaders at Fortune 100 companies, global brands, social enterprise startups, NGOs, and everything in between.
We'll be taking a deep dive to learn how they are integrating purpose into their organizations
to benefit both business and society for enduring impact. Join us.
Hi, I'm Chris Noble.
And I'm Carol Cohn.
Today, we're super lucky to have Mike Pepperman with us from LG Electronics. He's here to talk about their Experience Happiness platform and to tell us about their journey to identify a purpose and activate it in their community and beyond. Mike, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Chris. I really appreciate it. I'm excited to be here with you guys today.
Well, it's great to have you, Mike. Tell us what kind of sparked your interest in social purpose? How did you get started with it?
Thanks, Chris. My interest in social purpose really goes back to some community service that I was involved in all the way back to high school. And when I had the opportunity here at LG to take over and step into the role that I'm in now, leading our Life's Good Experience Happiness platform, I couldn't resist. It's been not just rewarding professionally, but rewarding personally as well.
I'm certain that a lot of our folks have seen the LG brand, but can you kind of tell us what LG and Life's Good and what the mission is in the U.S. for the company, and then also kind of blend in where the social purpose came from?
Absolutely. At LG, our products are really well known for being stylish and innovative on the cutting edge. And the other thing that we're well known for is our tagline, Life's Good. We had the opportunity going back about 2 years now to start to try to identify where we wanted to put some added focus in our social contribution efforts to really bring some additional strategy to the forefront and focus in a wide variety of different activities that we were involved in. And with the help of Carol and the team from Matchfire, we dug into some consumer insights, some employee survey information, and some surveys that we did with our leadership here to help us identify that coming back to that tagline and helping to bring meaning and showcase the purpose behind that Life's Good tagline was the place that we should really focus in on.
And Mike, what really impressed us from the very beginning was the cross-functional team you pulled together. This wasn't siloed in the corner of LG. We really got to understand the business, bring in brand marketing, bring in public affairs, communications, employee engagement. And as well, we had a lot of meetings with your CEO.
Yeah, it was, thank you. It was really important for us to ensure that this was really authentic to our brand. And in order to ensure that we did that the right way, it's important to bring together a wide variety of stakeholders. I believe we had somebody in there from all of our business units, consumer facing and commercial facing, and all levels of executive leadership. And they each provided a unique perspective, not only on the insights that they brought from the consumer standpoint, but how they felt about our brand and our company and where we should be focusing.
So tell us about that program. So everybody's together in a room and you've figured out a direction and what you want to do. What's the program that LG's bringing to life?
Yeah, it's great. Thank you. It's Life's Good Experience Happiness is focused on two primary missions. We want to increase awareness that sustainable happiness is achievable, that there's actually a science and that there's over 70 years of research behind sustainable happiness and social emotional well-being. And as an extension of that, we want to bring sustainable happiness to a set of skills that we've worked to identify with a few different partners that we call the sustainable happiness skills. We want to bring those sustainable happiness skills to 5.5 million kids over 5 years. And I'm really happy to say that just in our first year, the 2017-2018 school year, through our partners, we were able to reach over 530,000 kids.
And that's a fast ramp up. How did you go from 0 to 60 so fast? And also, I remember when we started talking about the issue of happiness, and I think we got a little bit of really. But you, once we showed you the science, the background, the experts, you really embraced it.
Yeah, it's a really good point to make, and a really good kind of step back for me to explain briefly is that um, when we look at the science and the research behind happiness, we identify a number of things. We know that happy people are healthier, they live longer, they do better in life and in school. We also, through the research you brought us, helped identify that over half of teens in the United States are stressed. They don't know how to handle it, and they don't have the tools to be able to cope with it. And it leads to a wide variety of issues. There's the opioid epidemic. Teen depression rates are on the rise. Teen suicide rates are the highest they've been in 30 years. And so, through some direction that you helped provide us, the quick ramp up was really established through a number of key partnerships. The first one being with the Greater Good Science Center out of the University of California, Berkeley, and they really help us keep us focused and grounded in the science and research to ensure that we can address all of those fluffiness issues that come when you start talking about happiness. That it really is um, that there really is science and research behind each of the 6 sustainable happiness skills. And I could go on and talk to you about how when you practice gratitude, beyond just saying thank you, when you're truly thankful, you're actually creating gray matter in different areas of your brain that have more executive function versus your fight or flight response. So we rely on our partnership with them to keep us grounded, and then some really great partnerships that we've established um, with 2 nonprofits and also Discovery Education, which is an educational resource provider, to who are the ones who are actually on the ground delivering these skills directly to the kids who were impacted.
How did you pick 5.5 million as a goal? That's aggressive.
Yeah, it was important for us to pick an aggressive goal. We wanted both our impact to be significant, as well as the perception of that impact to be significant. So it's going to be a challenging goal to achieve. The organizations that we're working with are a little bit more grassroots. There's an organization called Inner Explorer, which is a mindfulness-based organization that helps bring the sustainable happiness to kids through school programs, and then Project Happiness, which is a high school-based happiness club program where they practice sustainable happiness skills through daily habits. And so we're working with them on ways to increase the reach of these programs, but in a way that's impactful. These aren't programs that are just providing kids with access to a video, and then we hope that they go home and practice human connection. They're actually working to instill a life change, to instill these skills for these kids to incorporate them as part of their daily routine.
One of the things I think is so important, Mike, is the way that you have approached partnering to get to your goals. And I know that you've already mentioned your nonprofit partners that are actually kind of delivering the impact, delivering some of the training directly to kids. You mentioned Greater Good Science Center as kind of a thought leader partner. What other partners do you have to pull together in order to get to this aggressive goal?
So I think you got the first steps down for us right. It was about we consider ourselves the experts in product development and products that we deliver to consumer that make life a little bit better through the features and innovation that we deliver. But where we weren't the experts was in the delivery of these skills. And so we consider ourselves kind of a cultivator and bringing various groups together. We have the thought leadership side where Greater Good Science Center helps us, as you mentioned, and our nonprofit and educational resource partners. And I think one of the next steps for us will be start to build a coalition of like-minded corporations who have similar goals, although they'll all be kind of distinct in their own right, but with a focus on bringing happiness and helping kids cope with the various different stressors that they're facing.
And how are you getting your employees engaged?
It's a great question. We've started a variety to use a variety of tactics to do that. And what we've been finding is that kind of small group interactions have been working the best from two standpoints. The first standpoint being more engagement with employees and deeper levels of discussion and conversation. But then the other component is that there's no single path to the journey to sustainable happiness. There's no one way to use the 6 sustainable happiness skills. And so by having smaller interactions focused on different aspects of the platform, employees can pick and choose what's going to work best for them. So there's a couple of things we've done recently, um, including launching an employee newsletter, which is monthly, which kind of takes on one skill at a time and provides some information and tools that employees can use for themselves and their families. We've started a series of lunch and learn events. We'll bring together groups of 25 to 50 employees for lunch, and we're bringing in one of our nonprofit partners to speak to them about whether it be mindfulness or any of the other sustainable happiness skills. And then in addition to that, we're able to provide through our partnerships the resources that we're providing to these kids through the nonprofit partners directly to our employees. So, for example, every employee in the U.S. here with LG gets a no-cost subscription to Inner Explorer to use for themselves and their family.
Did you have to change or evolve any of your employee policies to make sure that you had an authentic connection to experience happiness?
I've been working very closely with our human resources department, and the great thing is that our leadership from our CEO to our vice president of human resources, we're all aligned and moving in the same direction along parallel paths. And so the intent is to ensure that we're not siloed from each other, that we're working together where it makes sense. And to give you an example of that, while I'm working with some of my HR colleagues on the newsletter and these various lunch and learn events, our HR groups actually started a, uh, a group called LG Change Agents. And these are groups of employees at different office locations whose mission is to be the ears for the employee audience and to be the voice of that employee audience and to bring issues, questions, um, and other problems that may arise from employees up to leadership and discuss ways to alleviate and fix any of those issues, and also vice versa to take some of the information that our leadership is providing and explanations of why we're doing certain things certain ways, um, and bringing that to the employees directly. So we're running kind of these parallel paths of some culture change here at LG, and it's really starting to take root in a good way.
Have you had any surprises that, you planned a lot, you had lots of cross functional meetings, but what were one or two of the surprises that you either had to stop and or navigate around?
I think some of we anticipated a lot of the potential internal hurdles, and we alleviated a lot of those issues through conversation and meetings and getting large groups together to discuss and putting together a steering committee.
Mike, you were talking just now about employees and how it extended, and how you're encouraging employees to get going first with happiness after your target audience of kids in schools. Have there been any major surprises along this journey as you're either telling employees about it or starting to pass the message out to the rest of the world?
Yeah, we've had surprises in really two areas. The first area in the employee front is just how much our employees have embraced the platform. Um, it's been really heartening to be in a wide variety of meetings and have employees stop me mid-presentation or mid-discussion to express their appreciation or tell a story about how they or their child has been bullied and how this could be really useful, um, in this day and age to help kids with this. And so that's been the first most positive surprise. We assumed it would be well received, but the engagement we've seen has been impressive. Um, the other side that has been really interesting for me as coming from a partnership development standpoint has been working with some of our nonprofit partners and really how wonderful and dedicated they are and they've been. And that's not the surprising part. That we anticipated that, um, but the willingness and ability for our partners to really sit down with us, um, for us to have really a number of in-depth conversations to discuss and ensure that we were really aligned, to have a full understanding of what they were doing, how they developed their program, and then to work with them to build customized platforms to help achieve the objectives that we had set out. Now, we're not changing what the partners are teaching or how they teach it because they're the experts in those areas, but they've all come to the table understanding that we had set out with specific objectives, and they wanted to help ensure that what they were delivering would deliver that.
That's actually really cool, Mike. And it makes me want to ask about other platform extensions. So, in order to reach out to the consumer, what boxes do you think you need to check internally or, as a company before you can actually start making this part of your cause marketing and your forward facing message?
We started doing some consumer communication when we first launched the program with the nonprofits last year, just in a very light way to help set the foundation, and to start to do a little bit of light education as part of building up our credibility and authenticity in this space, because that was really important for us. And there were two components of that. One was that we wanted to reinforce the work that we had already done to show that this is a long-term commitment for LG. This isn't a flash in the pan here. And so we really made sure that we had reached, I believe the number we used at the time was 50,000 kids, that we had reached 50,000 kids before pushing forward and really starting to communicate with consumers. But the other piece of that was really focusing on establishing the partnerships we had developed, establishing credibility and authenticity through our Greater Good Science Center partnership and how we were relying on them for the science and research, and establishing our true commitment and really in-depth commitment to our nonprofit partners. And so we're through that first phase of kind of building that foundation. Um, and as we continue to talk to consumers through social media channels and our website and other channels, we've been seeing that consumers are really responding to the message that we're putting out there. They're engaging with our social media. We're seeing increases in positive sentiment and decreases in negative sentiment. Um, and so, the next phase for us will be to begin to amplify that and try to reach that first priority I mentioned when we first started about really increasing awareness that sustainable happiness is achievable and that there's this skill set.
One other thing I think is interesting that you touched on briefly, but I just wanted to go back on is the physical footprint of your social impact. Can you talk a little bit about that strategy?
So yeah, I can speak to kind of the geographic footprint of what we're doing. As part of the first phase of our program, it was really important for us to ensure that we were taking a starting point in our own backyards. And so with the first nonprofit partnership we developed with Inner Explorer, we focused on 8 cities across the U.S. where LG has office locations. We wanted to ensure that the schools here in Englewood and Englewood Cliffs, New Jersey, all had access to the programs that we were running, and then in other cities across the U.S. as well. Not just as a benefit to our employees, because in most cases our employees aren't living in the towns we're located in, but to ensure that we were amplifying our commitment to where we're utilizing resources.
I'm just curious about who did you interact with in the local markets in terms of getting to the schools? The schools directly? Did you work with any of the mayors? Have you brought in any other not for profits in the local market?
That's another great question. So it's really been a wide variety of communications here in Englewood and Englewood Cliffs. We've been able to develop over the course of a few years relationships with the superintendents of the two school districts, and through those relationships, I now have a wide variety of relationships with a few of the principals here and directors of curriculum. And some of where our other office locations are, we're working through wherever we've got a local contact who can help us get in touch with the school district. It's not always the easiest thing when you're calling a school district, even when you're saying, "Hey, I've got this thing that's for free for you," for them to have the time to be able to sit down and talk with you. But what we've found is that once we've gotten a foot in the door and explained what we're doing, what we have been doing, and what we want to bring, the enthusiasm just jumps off the chart.
And so, how do you then scale that? Because it sounds like you've gone from a consumer program as well as a community relations program.
The scalability is one of the challenges, and what we're starting to find now is that we're seeing this momentum building, um, where social emotional well-being and social emotional learning in the school setting, um, it's either at or just achieved recently, kind of a tipping point where when you go into a school and you talk about social emotional learning, which the sustainable happiness skills are all related to, teachers and administrators, they're all aware of it. And so um, it comes back to increasing the awareness. And as we've been doing that over the past year and a half, as the awareness continues to grow and increase, teachers and administrators and parents and consumers are more open to the idea of what we're bringing to the table. So for the time being, we're leaning on that to help us scale things up.
And with your storytelling, how are you dealing with the tensions in this issue? Because, the video, you have a very, really sharp video on your website. And, you talk about stress and then teen suicide and, the downside of the depression and such. So, how are you balancing that out?
It's a great question. Anybody who's listening who's interested, you can check out the video on lgexperiencehappiness.com. And Carol, you make a great point. We start that video intentionally with some shocking statistics about teen suicide, about attempted suicide, about depression rates, and that's intentional. We want to be a little bit jarring there at the beginning, but where we want to lead and where I hope that video will lead people to is actually tied directly to one of our sustainable happiness skills, which is positive outlook. We're really focused on there is this set of skills. It's teachable, learnable, and something that anybody can practice, kids and adults alike. And that through the practice of these skills, and that everyone's again going to take their own path, their own journey to practicing these skills, but through the practice of these skills, we can not only have kids who are more resilient, who can better handle stress and cope with the stress that they're facing, but that we end up in the long run with a kinder, friendlier society where everybody can interact well together.
So you've probably gotten a lot of feedback on social media. Don't know if you've actually, have a story or two that you'd like to share.
The kind of the I'd say the most rewarding feedback that we've been getting through social media are some of the stories that we see, primarily from educators, but a couple of parents here and there as well, who have taken to social media to talk about the impact that programs like Inner Explorer and Project Happiness are making with them. It's one of our goals as we continue our journey in social media to start to amplify the stories of the kids who are being impacted. And so, hearing directly from them how sustainable happiness skills practice has helped turn around the culture in their school or has helped them overcome a difficult time in their lives has really been the most rewarding part.
So, Mike, we've covered it sort of from the mission and social impact perspective, from the employee perspective. We've talked a little bit about how you guys got executive buy-in and picked an area for impact, and also about how you're approaching it sort of earnestly and building a base of credibility with partners before going forward. This is Purpose 360. We're trying to get all the way around the wheel. Can you tell us a little bit about how it's helping you on the marketing side? Are there any important metrics that you're tracking? I know it's early in the program, but are there insights there that you think are beneficial for the growth and health of the program going forward?
Yeah, a lot of this relies on the overall commitment that we've made, right? The reaching 5.5 million kids over 5 years is the starting point of our journey. Is obviously the focal point that sets the foundation. Without that commitment and an ongoing projection in that direction, we really don't have any type of program to lean on. And what that's tied to from a marketing standpoint comes back to some of the consumer insights that we looked into. We were initially talking at the beginning of the program here, tied to how consumers think and feel about our brand. We know consumers think that we're an innovative brand, that we're a fun brand. But what we also learned is they already have a propensity to think that we are a brand that cares, a company that cares. And that's one of the key metrics that we want to continue to drive. And we measure that in a variety of different ways. One of the key ways that we measure that is looking at consumer sentiment in social media. Being a consumer electronics and appliance brand from the consumer facing side, we're never going to get away from somebody who's upset because their washer broke or their TV is not functioning the way they wanted it to. But what we've seen in our social media channels when we're talking about experience happiness is a drop, significant drops in negative sentiment, negative commentary, and really significant increases in positive sentiment. So those are a couple of the key metrics that we look at as we're kind of measuring the nuts and bolts from the market side.
So I know that you had a major presentation at Sustainable Brands, and it was standing room only. Can you give us just a little bit of the type of questions and the areas of interest that the audience had there?
Yeah, I have to throw some kudos over to Chris and the Matchfire team for helping us kind of outline how that presentation was going to go, and Carol, to you and your team for getting us as involved as we have been with Sustainable Brands. But that was an opportunity that we wanted to make sure we leverage, not only to talk about what we were doing in the social impact space, but help shed some light on the process that we went through with our partners, our nonprofit partners. And to do that, we brought Inner Explorer and Greater Good Science and representatives from those organizations to the table with us to help talk about how we develop those partnerships. And in addition to that, it was important for us that everybody who participated, everybody who was in attendance, not only understood the process we went through and how wonderful we think our own program is, or we'll give ourselves a little pat on the back, but that they also left with a little bit better of an understanding of the impact that the sustainable happiness skills make for them. So we actually designed a variety of activities, one for each of the 6 sustainable happiness skills, and each of the tables was assigned a sustainable happiness skill in particular. The table I was working with, we happened to be making mindfulness glitter bottles, and so there were two things we were touching on there. One being more mindful, but the other component of it was that we were donating those glitter bottles to a local school in Vancouver. And coming out of that experience, to be honest, I was a little skeptical of how it was all going to run. But in the end, there was a table who had gratitude as a sustainable happiness skill, and they were writing thank you letters. And I anticipated getting a couple because the intention was they would write out their thank you notes to somebody who they wanted to express gratitude for, and that we would mail them for them. And we got about a dozen letters, but in addition to those dozen letters, there were two of them that were made out to LG. And it was really not only heartwarming, but reaffirming that we had selected a cause area and that we had selected partners and we had selected a mission that was meaningful and impactful. So that was an opportunity I'm really glad we had the chance to move forward with.
Well, I'm super grateful to you, Mike, for bringing this to us, because that's a really cool story, and it made me for a minute there want to rename the podcast into Curated Purpose, because it feels like that's what LG is doing. Like you've figured out the area, you've organized the partners, and you're the curator of experience happiness as well as the brand owner. But it's a really interesting space to be for a company, and I think it sets the standards of where companies have to go in order to really embrace their purpose and be able to have it radiate out in all different directions.
We had a really unique opportunity. We had the opportunity to establish something brand new at LG, which would help bring meaning and purpose to our brand. And between the direction that Carol's team helped bring and your team, Chris, helped bring us, and kind of providing the guidance that we needed to really focus in on what the different phases of the evolution needed to be. I think we've built a solid foundation that we can grow from.
So, can you give our listeners 5 quick tips? So, if they're going to either enhance or start from scratch, it could be either. What should they really, they're going to take out their notebook. They really want to gather these. Just going to help their journey.
Let me see if I can give you 5. I'll try.
Okay. 3 is okay too.
Okay, great. The first one is definitely get back to your roots. Really understand what your organization is about. There are a lot, and they're pretty obvious. So there are a lot of companies out there who have really great missions, but you look at it and you go, I just don't understand how that connects to their brand. A lack of connection to your brand is going to provide you some challenges down the road. In terms of a few different areas, whether it be employee buy-in, or when you start to move into the cause marketing phase. But the benefits of having something that's rooted in your brand and your company culture, can't speak highly enough about that. The second component is, and we're really lucky here at LG with our current leadership, in that they had the patience and actually forced our hand to ensure that we were making the impact before we went out and really started talking about it. It was important for us to develop that credibility and that level of authenticity that, having done the work and developed the partnership, really brought to the stage. And I'll hit a third one. The third one being, it's important to really take your time when looking and selecting partners. Carol, your team initially brought us and helped us sort through a list of 115 potential partners. Yeah,
That's a lot. Maybe you only look at 50.
Exactly. We whittled it down to 30. You helped us whittle it down to 30. From there, we took a deeper dive. We ended up with 3 incredible partners, who they're not the largest partners out there necessarily in this space, but they were the ones who had the right connection to our mission, the right potential connection to our brand, and the desire and the right team members in place to sit down and really work with.
Well, 3 are good. So as we draw to a close, and you've been great with your time, where do you see social purpose evolving in the future?
I think we're going to see a continuation of the ending of the corporate culture of just cutting the check. I think we see it not only from the consumer demand side. Consumers want to see further engagement, but I think we also see it from the desire of corporations to be able to better communicate why they're working with certain organizations. And it varies depending on the the type of donation you're talking about, right? There's always going to be a disaster response check cutting initiative. That's important. It's vital to help those types of organizations forward. But I think in the social impact space, you're going to see the continuation of this movement of stronger partnerships, and it may be fewer partnerships, but it may be more in depth. Is where I think it's going.
I think that's great, Mike. I think you're right. I think that one of the things that we're learning in this project is that the role of brands and businesses is changing. Right, the audience today is looking towards all sorts of institutions for signs of, hopefulness and forward vision, and brands are answering the call at, I think, a heretofore unseen level. Well, maybe not heretofore unseen. Maybe your Carnegies and your Vanderbilts did their work during the industrial age, but we're really seeing brands step up and be about something in a way that I don't think we've seen in many years. And it's great to hear the LG story and to hear your role in that.
I appreciate it. Like I mentioned earlier, it's been tremendously rewarding. It's been something that across all levels of our organization has been really well received.
So Mike, we've been talking about you, but we're putting together a list of most admired. You can't nominate yourself. So who do you admire as a company or a brand that's really doing authentic, sustained work?
Oh, there's so many of them out there. There's organizations that have been recognized for a wide variety of contributions, but I really hold organizations like the Dove movement, for example, up on a pillar. They took a little bit of a risk with their platform and their program, and not only the risk that they took, but the way they incorporated it into their marketing really kind of set a great example for ways to move forward with cause marketing efforts designed with purpose and engagement.
Okay. And do you have a favorite social purpose quote that we can end on?
I think not necessarily social purpose, but and I hope I get it right here, but I'm going to throw back to Abraham Lincoln, who I have a favorite quote from tied to the LG Experience Happiness platform, and it's people are only as happy as they choose to be, and I think you can connect that to social purpose. You're really only connected. You're really only as purposeful as you choose to be, and you have the opportunity to make a variety of choices in life.
That's great. Well, we thank you so much for your time, and can't wait to see you reach your 5.5 million, probably knowing you, 3 years.
Hopefully. Fingers crossed.
All right. Hey, thanks very much, Mike.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for helping us experience happiness.
There you go. I'm happier already.